Liam grew up under the loving care of his grandmother Nora, without knowing much about his parents. When she asked about them, her grandmother always replied, "Your mother passed away and your father left town never to return." Despite the pain of this absence, Nora did her best to raise Liam with care. However, an unexpected illness led to her needing surgery, and the boy had to be sent to an orphanage. As soon as he arrived at the orphanage, Liam, still just 14 years old, found himself surrounded by long hallways and silent courtyards. The place had a peaceful routine, but missing his grandmother weighed heavily on his heart. His life had changed drastically since Nora fell ill. Without resources for medical costs, Liam felt lost, not knowing how to save the only family he had. With his grandmother unable to care for him, the orphanage became his new home. One rainy morning, as he looked out the dusty window, Liam felt a mixture of despair and a small hope. "I knew I needed to find a way to get money." While going through a box of memories under the bed, he found an old photo of Nora, smiling on a stage with a microphone in her hand. This awakened memories of his own singing abilities. He always brightened the house with his music, and now he believed that this talent could be the key to saving his grandmother. Remembering Nora's passion for music, Liam decided he needed to introduce himself to the public. After researching, he discovered that a local restaurant called the Kennedy Center promoted live performances. This could be your chance to make your voice heard and, who knows, make some money. Determined to move on, Liam decided to go to the restaurant the next day. Arriving at the Kennedy Center on a cloudy afternoon, he felt like he was in a welcoming environment, very different from the orphanage. He watched the movement as he approached the counter, where James Valente, the owner of the place, was attentive to the customers. James was a middle-aged man with a firm posture, but his gaze revealed a hidden generosity. With a mix of nervousness and hope, Liam approached. "Sir, I need a job," he said, trying to sound confident, although his eyes betrayed the desperation he felt. James raised an eyebrow, surprised by the presence of a child in that room. "You're just a child," he replied, with a tone of doubt. "This is no place for children." Liam didn't let it get him down. "There is no age for art. I can sing. Please give me a chance. I really need this opportunity." James watched Liam with a critical eye, but the boy's determination and seriousness made him hesitate. He knew it wasn't common to find someone so young with so much determination. This awakened in him a mix of curiosity and compassion. "Okay," James said finally with a sigh. "I'll hear you sing. If you have a special talent, I'll give you a chance." Liam took a deep breath, feeling relief mixed with anxiety. This was the opportunity he needed. With his eyes closed for a moment, he prepared to use his voice, which carried not only talent, but also the hope of saving the life of the one he loved most. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders and closed his eyes again, seeking an intimate connection with the song he was about to perform. The melody he chose was "Eu sei que vou te amar" by Tom Jobim. As soon as he began to sing, his voice flowed with a clarity that surprised everyone in the restaurant. The environment of the Kennedy Center seemed to transform into a magical space. Despite his youth, his voice had a depth and intensity that filled the room. Every note was pronounced with precision, and every pause carried a touch of genuine feeling. The music seemed to not only travel through the space, but also touch the hearts of every person present. The customers, who had previously been enjoying their conversations and enjoying their meals, began to fall silent, attracted by the beauty of the performance. The murmur of conversations was replaced by attentive and respectful listening. The next few minutes passed as if they were seconds. When Liam finished, the last chord echoed through the restaurant and a stunned silence hung in the air, filled with an almost palpable admiration. For a brief moment, it seemed as if time had stopped for everyone present. Then, as if a spell had been broken, the room erupted into frenzied applause. The clapping resounded with an intensity that reflected the shared emotion, and many customers stood up, applauding enthusiastically. James Valente, who was behind the counter, watched the performance with a look of deep surprise. He knew many talents and had seen many performances, but the sincerity and strength of Liam's voice were undeniable. When the applause began to die down, James approached the boy, with a smile on his face, but also with a serious expression. "You've got talent, kid," James said, with a mixture of admiration and authority in his voice. "I'm going to give you a job, but on two conditions: you have to keep your grades up at school and you can't tell anyone about this deal. Understand?" Liam, still panting and adrenaline pumping, felt a wave of relief and gratitude. He knew this was the opportunity he needed to raise money for his grandmother's surgery. "I understand, Mr. Valente," Liam replied firmly. "I will fulfill the agreement." James nodded, satisfied with the boy's response. "Great. So, starting tomorrow, you get started. We'll talk about the details, but I want you to know that, despite the rules, I'm here to help you in any way I can." Liam left the restaurant with a renewed sense of hope. As he walked back to the orphanage, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. The night that was falling over Curitiba seemed more pleasant, and he was determined to make every opportunity given to him count. When he arrived at the orphanage, he found Aurora, the cook, who was an almost maternal figure to all the boys and girls who lived there. His special affection for Liam was something everyone noticed. Aurora, the orphanage's cook, was in her 50s. Her gray hair was pulled back into a simple bun, and her welcoming presence made everyone feel safer. His voice, always soft and full of understanding, offered a comfort that many orphanage residents did not find elsewhere. That night, as the aroma of dinner spread throughout the kitchen, Liam, with a nervous look and an aura of secrecy, approached Aurora. She was organizing the utensils and preparing the dessert of the day, a task that often distracted her from her daily worries. Liam waited until the last child left the kitchen and, with a determined look, addressed her. "Aurora, I need to tell you something," Liam began, his voice shaking a little. "I got a job at the Kennedy Center. Mr. Valente gave me a chance to sing there." Aurora raised her eyebrows, surprised and worried at the same time. "A job? But you're so young. Won't it be difficult for you to balance that with your studies and life here at the orphanage?" Liam shook his head, eyes full of hope. "I will work hard to maintain my grades and fulfill my responsibilities. I need this job to help my grandmother.
She is very sick, and I want to do everything I can to pay for her surgery." Aurora sighed, her eyes filling with empathy. She knew Liam was a determined boy, and her concern was not just for the work itself, but for the effort and sacrifice involved. "If you are so determined, then I will help you," she said, with an encouraging smile. "But you have to promise me that you will be careful. We don't want you to get hurt or overworked." Liam smiled in relief and nodded quickly. "I promise, Aurora. I just need a little help getting out of the orphanage at night without the other kids or the director noticing." The cook thought for a moment and then agreed. "I'll help you sneak out every night after the other kids are asleep. I'll open the back door for you. It's the most discreet way." The plan was ready. Every night, after the lights in the hallway went out and silence took over the orphanage, Aurora prepared for the ritual of allowing Liam to leave. With each step, she felt a mixture of pride and worry. It was a task that involved whispering and careful movement. In turn, Liam felt deep gratitude for having Aurora's support. Each night, he patiently waited for the signal to head to the restaurant, his mind focused on his mission. Each time he walked through the back door, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but also a growing sense that he was doing the right thing. One night at the Kennedy Center, the restaurant was particularly elegant. The tables were set with white tablecloths and lit candles, reflecting a welcoming and sophisticated atmosphere. The clientele enjoyed dinner, with gentle conversation and occasional laughter. Among those attending the Kennedy Center was Natalie Costa, a wealthy businesswoman in her 40s who had recently moved to the city. Accustomed to a rigid routine, her regular visits to the restaurant were part of her effort to adapt to her new life. Sitting at the table closest to the stage, Natalie watched the movement around her with meticulous attention. Her gaze was often distracted, as if she were immersed in thoughts that could not find rest. There was something about that night that seemed to capture her attention, but she didn't know exactly what it was. When Liam took the stage, the restaurant was an excited buzz, and many customers were eager to see the performance. Natalie, with her attentive gaze and elegant bearing, barely paid attention to the young figure preparing to sing. However, as soon as Liam began to sing his first notes, something inside her changed. Liam's voice was clear, and the melodies he sang seemed to tap into a deep part of his memory. Natalie's eyes widened. There was something about the timbre of the boy's voice that evoked intense, long-forgotten memories. The notes flowed like a distant echo of a past she tried to bury. She remembered André, the man she had loved with all the strength of her heart and who had tragically died years ago. The similarity was unsettling, and Natalie felt a tightness in her chest that began to intensify throughout the song. The pain spread like an unrelenting fire, and Natalie rose from her chair, trying to shake off the crushing sensation that enveloped her. The room spun around him, his legs weakened, and his vision became blurred. The sound of the restaurant blended into a distant hum. The tightness in her chest became unbearable, and with one last effort, she grabbed the table for support. Before she could understand what was happening, Natalie passed out, falling to the floor. The sound of the impact was drowned out by the murmur of the room, but soon cries of concern began to spread. "Call an ambulance," shouted James Valente, who immediately approached Natalie with an expression of panic and concern. He was used to dealing with many situations in the restaurant, but this was completely different. James knelt beside Natalie, trying to remain calm as his mind raced with the need to act quickly. Restaurant staff quickly rushed to help. Some picked up the phone to call emergency services, while others tried to keep customers calm and away. Chaos ensued momentarily, and everyone was focused on assisting Natalie, who was now lying on the floor, pale and unconscious. Liam, who had finished his performance, was on stage, listening to the growing buzz in the room. When he saw the scene unfold, his mind was filled with worry. He tried to get down from the stage to understand what was happening, but the image of Natalie passed out and the commotion around her left him paralyzed and helpless. Whatever had caused that reaction, he knew it was something serious, and the weight of the situation seemed to add a new layer of tension to his night. Thus, the night at the Kennedy Center ended in tumultuous fashion. As paramedics tended to Natalie, Liam, still shaken, came down from the stage and approached James. The restaurant owner was at Natalie's side, trying to comfort her and making sure that proper help was being provided. "It's not your fault," James said in a firm, reassuring voice. "The situation was an accident. There is no reason for you to blame yourself." The next day, Liam decided to visit the hospital. His mind was full of questions, and he felt an urgent need to make sure Natalie was okay. The walk to the hospital was filled with nervous anxiety. He wondered why he was so worried about the well-being of a woman he barely knew. There was something about her that seemed to touch a part of his own life, and it bothered him. When Liam arrived at the hospital and was taken to Natalie's room, he found her resting in bed, looking fragile. His eyes, initially closed, opened when he noticed someone's presence. She looked at him with a weakened but curious gaze. "Who are you?" Natalie asked, her voice breaking a little. "I'm Liam," he replied, in a gentle, respectful tone of voice. I sing in the restaurant where you passed out. Natalie fixed her gaze on Liam, and an expression of confusion and surprise came across her face. Up close, his resemblance to Andre, his former love, was even more striking and disturbing. She felt a sharp pain in her chest, mixed with an unsettling sensation. Do you know a man named Andre? He asked, almost in a whisper. Liam shook his head, with a perplexed expression. No, I don't know anyone with that name. I live in an orphanage. My grandmother got sick and I was raised by her after my father left. Liam's response seemed distant and complex. Natalie watched him with a mixture of hope and despair. Does this boy have any connection to Andre? I need to find out more about him. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, James and Aurora discussed the incident and the implications for Liam's future. James called the cook for a private conversation after the events of the previous night. Sitting at one of the tables, he looked at Aurora with a worried expression. He reminds me of someone, James said, with a hint of frustration, but I can't remember who. Aurora agreed, with an equally thoughtful look. He is truly special. There is something about this boy that is difficult to define, but it is clear that he has a unique presence. We need to protect him and ensure that he has the chance to follow his path without further interruptions. James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Yes, and we must also consider what Natalie is looking for. If there is some connection to the past, we need to be prepared for anything. Liam must be kept safe, and we must support him as best we can. As Natalie and Liam's fates began to intertwine in unexpected ways, the complexity of the relationships between past and present began to reveal itself. In the days following the restaurant incident, Liam continued his routine with a determination that seemed unshakable. Each night, when he took the stage at the Kennedy Center, his voice filled the space with an energy that was both emotional and inspiring. The money he was raising from his performances was slowly accumulating, but with each performance, Liam felt like he was one step closer to his goal, raising the amount needed for his grandmother, Nora's, surgery. Meanwhile, Natalie was recovering from her heart attack in the hospital. The experience came as a shock to her, not only because of her health, but also because of the lingering feeling that Liam had an inexplicable connection to her past. Even while he was under doctor's care and struggling to regain his health, his mind wandered to old memories and a sense of déjà vu that he couldn't explain. After another successful performance, James Valente decided it was time to better understand Liam's incredible dedication. He had watched the young man with growing admiration and was increasingly moved by the boy's passion and perseverance. James called Liam in for a private chat, hoping it would clear up some of his doubts. "You're amazing, Liam," James began, with a tone of genuine admiration. "But I need to know why you're doing this. What's the reason behind it?" Liam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his mission and the trust he had built with James. He knew the time had come to open his heart. "My grandmother is sick," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "She needs surgery, which is very expensive. I'm trying to raise money to help her. She raised me since my father left, but I had to go to the orphanage after her illness. Now I want to do everything I can to take care of her." James listened intently, his heart sinking with empathy for the difficult situation Liam was facing. The boy's story was moving and full of courage, touching the restaurant owner deeply. "I'll help you, Liam," James said with an expression of commitment. "You are not alone in this. I will do my best to help you achieve your goal." James' words brought relief to Liam, who felt a new vigor to continue his journey. The certainty that he had the support of James and the restaurant seemed to renew his energy and hope. Over the next few days, as Liam continued his performances and Natalie recovered in the hospital, the fragments of their pasts began to intertwine in intriguing ways. Natalie, now more lucid and with some time to reflect, couldn't shake the feeling that there was something significant in the connection between Liam and Andre, her former love. One afternoon, Natalie lay in her hospital bed, feeling discomfort and restlessness not only in her body, but also in her mind.
Before I continue, I need to tell you something. Do you want to attract a lot of money into your life? Check out the powerful and secret Tesla ritual that I will leave in the first pinned comment, and start transforming your financial life. Let's continue.
Every time she closed her eyes, Andre's memories came back to haunt her with painful clarity. Andre had been an overwhelming presence in her life, a love that filled her and then abruptly left her. Years later, Natalie had spent that time trying to understand what had happened to him. His absence became an unsolved mystery, and Liam's resemblance to Andre was undeniable and disturbing. It was as if the young singer was carrying a fragment of Natalie's past, bringing to the surface a whirlwind of feelings she had buried. Natalie always remembered the characteristics that the two shared, the way Andre smiled, the tone of his voice and even certain gestures that Liam reproduced in moments of introspection. At the hospital, Natalie began to investigate more about Liam on the internet, but found nothing. She wondered if there could be any real bond between the young man and the man he had loved. His thoughts were a tangle of hope and pain, trying to put together the pieces of a puzzle that seemed to have no solution. The restlessness kept her awake for hours, and she knew she needed to find out more to understand the connection she felt. While Natalie struggled with her thoughts and feelings, Liam continued his routine at the Kennedy Center. His performances became increasingly popular, drawing larger crowds each night. The restaurant, now with new energy and a growing audience, was a testament to Liam's talent and dedication. The quality of their performances made the venue one of the busiest spots in the city. Furthermore, James has taken on a pivotal role in Liam's life. More than just an employer, James became a father figure to the young man. Not only did he supervise Liam's performances, but he was also attentive to his well-being. Regular conversations, words of encouragement, and wise advice were part of the support James offered. He made sure Liam was safe, fed and, most importantly, not overwhelmed by the pressure of his responsibilities. So the relationship between James and Liam evolved naturally and sincerely. James saw in Liam not only a promising talent, but also a young man with a pure heart and a just cause. He felt a deep respect for Liam's determination to care for his grandmother and was determined to do everything he could to support him. On a particularly busy night, after the restaurant closed, the atmosphere was calmer and quieter. The bright lights of the Kennedy Center had been turned off, and the last notes of music still seemed to echo softly between the empty walls. James and Liam were sitting together at one of the tables, now cluttered and empty, but still reflecting some of the vibrant energy the restaurant had during opening hours. With a look of pride, James watched Liam, sitting in front of him. The soft light from the lamp in the corner cast a welcoming shadow over them both, creating a space of tranquility after the frenzy of presentations. "You have a real gift, Liam," James said, his voice full of warmth and sincerity. "I'm really proud of you." Liam smiled, but the expression on his face couldn't completely hide the worry that weighed in his eyes. "Thanks, James, but I just want this to be enough," Liam said, anxiety evident in his tone. James noticed the concern in the young man and, with a gentle gesture, placed a comforting hand on Liam's shoulder. "We're going to make sure she gets the help she needs. I already told you this, you've done an incredible job and I'll be by your side until your grandmother is well." These words of encouragement gave Liam momentary relief, but he still carried the weight of responsibility. The determination in her heart was strong, but the concern for Nora's health remained constant. Meanwhile, Aurora, the orphanage's dedicated cook, continued to play a crucial role in Liam's life. Every night after dinner, she helped the boy leave the orphanage unnoticed, ensuring he arrived at the restaurant in time for his performances. Her concern for Liam was genuine, and she did everything she could to support him in his mission. The relationship between Aurora and James, which had begun with mutual respect, grew over time into something deeper. Conversations about Liam and strategies to support him created a connection between them that went beyond the professional. They found solace and understanding in each other, sharing not only concerns about Liam's well-being, but also the challenges and joys that came with their responsibilities. James and Aurora often met to discuss how they could improve Liam's situation. These conversations were filled with a shared sense of hope and a true desire to help. They spent hours discussing details, always looking for ways to offer the best possible support to the young singer. One night, the orphanage was enveloped in a peaceful calm. The other children were already asleep, and the environment seemed prepared for Liam's next mission. He was looking forward to another performance at the Kennedy Center and was preparing to leave when Aurora entered the living room, carrying a small, carefully wrapped package. Liam, curious, looked at the package and raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" he asked, his tone revealing a mixture of surprise and expectation. Aurora smiled, with an affectionate sparkle in her eyes. "It's an outfit," she said, handing the package to Liam. "I thought you would like something special to wear in your performances. I wanted you to have something that reflected your talent. Today I will be at the restaurant to see you sing." Liam's eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm as he began to unwrap the package. The wrapping was carefully removed, revealing a shimmering suit with a subtle glow that seemed to catch the light in an almost magical way. The suit was elegant and sophisticated, with a cut that perfectly matched the style of his presentations. "Thank you, Aurora," Liam said, his eyes shining with excitement. "It's perfect. I don't know how to thank you." Aurora smiled warmly, her heart warmed by the joy of seeing Liam's happiness. "You're welcome, darling. Now go out and shine. You deserve to show the world how special you are." Liam donned the suit with a mixture of gratitude and pride. He knew that Aurora had put a lot of care and attention into her choice, and this only increased her determination to present herself in the best light possible. With one last look in the mirror, adjusting his suit and making sure it was perfect, he left the orphanage confident, ready for another ordinary night. But this time, the suit's shine sparkled under the street lights, reflecting the same energy and hope he brought with him to the stage. Performances at the Kennedy Center continued to draw a growing crowd, and Liam's presence, especially in his new outfit, only added a touch of magic to his performances. At the same time, in the hospital, Natalie had recovered well, but her curiosity about Liam did not decrease. The similarity between the young singer and Andre continued to bother her, and her desire to find out more about him was becoming more and more urgent. When he was discharged a few hours earlier, his mind was far from medical care. The desire to find out more about Liam and any possible connection to his past motivated her to leave the hospital as soon as she was allowed to. Even with the doctor's recommendations that she rest, Natalie was determined to go to the restaurant that night. The impulse to seek answers attracted her like a magnetic force. Arriving at the Kennedy Center, Natalie headed to the back of the restaurant, where she found a discreet place to sit. She still looked like someone who was recovering, wearing the blue hospital gown and carrying the accession still in her arms. However, there was a determination in his eyes that reflected the depth of his search for answers. Despite the hustle and bustle, the atmosphere was cozier than usual, and a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Meanwhile, Liam was backstage, adjusting his sparkling new suit with a mix of nervousness and excitement. Aurora and James watched him with an encouraging smile. "You're ready to shine," Aurora said, with a tone of pride and support. Liam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the warmth of Aurora and James' words. Then he walked to the stage, the shine of his suit reflecting the light of the spotlight. As soon as Liam took the stage, the restaurant immediately fell silent, and the eager customers paid attention to the young man who was about to perform. He began to sing, and his voice immediately filled the space, filling the room with a deep emotion. Every note seemed to vibrate with sincerity and passion, and the performance was marked by an intensity that captivated everyone present. Sitting in the back, Natalie also watched carefully. As Liam sang, the resemblance to Andre became even more evident to her. It was as if every movement and every note were a distant echo of the past. The way Liam moved on stage, the depth of his voice, and even the way he looked at the audience brought back memories that Natalie had tried to hide. Natalie's gaze was fixed on Liam, and her mind raced to understand the connection. The impact of Liam's performance was being amplified by his emotional state, making every detail seem even more significant. As the song drew to a close, the audience was in reverent silence, completely absorbed by the performance. Natalie felt a mixture of shock and hope, trying to process what she was experiencing. Liam's talent and presence were undeniably linked to something deeper, and the feeling that he could be connected to Andre was almost overwhelming. As the last note of Liam's performance faded into thin air and the restaurant began to fill with the typical buzz after a show, Natalie stood up from her seat in the back and walked purposefully toward the bar, where James Valente was organizing the dinners. Things and receiving congratulations from the regulars. Still under the influence of Liam's performance, with her emotions mixed in an urgent desire to find out more, Natalie said, "Excuse me, Mr. Valente," her voice slightly trembling and carrying palpable tension. She struggled to maintain her composure, but her worry was evident in every word. "I need to talk to you about Liam." James, upon hearing Liam's name, looked up at Natalie, and his gaze became wary. He recognized her immediately as the woman who had passed out during one of Liam's performances. There was something familiar about her appearance and the way she spoke that made James feel there was more to the story than he had initially realized. "Sure, but what do you want to know?" James asked, trying to keep his tone neutral but closely watching Natalie's expression. Natalie took a deep breath, gathering her words carefully. "I believe Liam may be related to someone I knew a long time ago, someone close to him. Maybe his father, and that means we also have a very strong bond. Can you tell me more about his story?" James hesitated, and the inner conflict was visible on his face. He knew Liam's privacy was important and had promised himself to protect the young man from any unwanted intrusion. "Liam is motherless, and his father left town," James began, his voice filled with a mixture of sadness and concern. "He lives at the local orphanage and sings here to raise money for surgery for his grandmother, who gave him to the orphanage after her illness." James' words came crashing down like waves. The idea that Liam was fighting alone just to help his grandmother touched his heart deeply. Natalie was moved to think of such a talented and determined young man living this harsh reality. "I need to talk to him," Natalie asked, her voice almost pleading. "Please, it's important. I need to understand if there is any connection to the past." James looked at Natalie, debating whether he should give in to her request. He knew that Liam was in a delicate situation and didn't want his life to be even more complicated by external issues. However, seeing the sincerity and pain in Natalie's eyes, he realized that this conversation could be crucial for everyone involved. "Okay," James agreed reluctantly. "I'll get Liam to talk to you, but please be careful what you ask. He already has enough to worry about." James walked away to look for Liam, while Natalie waited anxiously for answers, feeling that this moment could bring to light truths that would change the trajectory of everyone involved. James Valente called Liam, who was in the dressing room preparing for the next performance. The young singer, still wearing his sparkling suit, approached the table with an air of curiosity mixed with a slight nervousness. He knew that Natalie Costa, the woman who had fainted during one of his performances, was waiting for him. "Liam, this is Mrs. Costa," James said, indicating Natalie. "She wants to talk to you." Natalie nodded politely to Liam, a smile on her lips that hid some of the apprehension. "Hello, Mrs. Costa. How can I help you?" Natalie took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions that were on the surface. It was important to maintain composure so as not to scare young Liam. "I need to ask something very important," she began. "Do you know anything about your parents, specifically your father?" Liam shook his head, looking a little perplexed. "No, unfortunately I don't know much. My father left me with my grandmother when I was very young because my mother died. I don't even remember his name because my grandmother never told me." The revelation was like a punch in the gut for Natalie. His eyes widened in surprise. "Your grandmother never mentioned anything about your father?" Natalie asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Liam thought for a moment, trying to remember. "She always said that my father had a great talent for music, just like me, but that's all I know." Natalie felt a rush of hope and despair at the same time. Liam's description seemed to fit that of his former love. "I met someone exactly like that. His name was Andre, he had an incredible voice and we split up almost 15 years ago." Liam looked intrigued and a little anxious. "Do you think my father could be this Andre?" Natalie nodded slowly, her mind working to connect the dots. "It's possible. The similarity in the talent description and the way you sing, it all seems to fit. We need to talk to your grandmother, perhaps she can confirm that Andre was in fact your father. If that's really true, I don't know how to handle it." "I never imagined that was possible," Liam said, confusion evident on his face. James, who had remained in the background, watched carefully. He knew the situation was sensitive and that any misstep could cause Liam or Natalie more pain. If that's true, there could be a lot more at stake here. It might be best to discuss this with your grandmother as soon as possible. She can provide more information. Liam, still processing the conversation, nodded in agreement. "Yes, we can talk to her, but I don't know if she will like bringing up the subject of my father." Natalie, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety, thanked Liam and James. "Thank you so much for listening. I really hope we can find answers." Liam said goodbye and prepared for the next performance, his mind occupied by the new revelations and the desire to discover more about his past. Natalie also said goodbye, feeling renewed hope for the possibility of a connection with the man who had been so important in her life. James followed Natalie to the exit, looking thoughtful as he considered his next steps. The visit to the hospital was organized quickly, driven by the urgency of the situation. Early the next morning, Natalie and Liam arrived at the hospital wing specializing in the elderly, both carrying a mix of nervousness and hope. The atmosphere was calm, and the still calm hospital was preparing for a new day of activities. Nora lay in a hospital bed in a shared room, visibly weak but with a smile that reflected warm recognition as she saw Natalie and Liam enter the room. "Nora!" Natalie exclaimed, her heart racing. Nora lifted her head a little, and her eyes lit up with a flash of recognition. "Natalie Costa. After all these years, I thought you were dead," said Nora, with a tired smile. His voice was weak but full of emotion. "I can't believe you're here." Liam, eager for answers, watched with an expression of expectation mixed with a bit of apprehension. "Do you know this woman?" he asked, his words filled with curiosity and nervousness. Nora looked at Natalie and then at Liam, her expression carrying a mixture of sadness and love. "Yes, Liam. She's an old girlfriend of your father's. He told me she died shortly after." "Well, never mind." Nora paused before continuing. "Ah, Andre, my son. I can't even say your name properly without feeling my heart break. He loved you very much, Liam, but he had to leave to protect you. I always wanted you to know the truth, but I knew how to count. Nora's words were like a direct blow to Liam's heart. He was silent for a moment, and tears began to form in his eyes. The weight of Nora's words and the confirmation of a truth he had only imagined were almost too much to process. Natalie, upon seeing Liam's reaction, felt a wave of pain and relief mixed together. She slowly advanced towards Liam, her eyes full of love and regret. So, Natalie, you're my dad's old girlfriend, right? Do you know who my mom is? Liam began, a tone of disbelief in his voice. Natalie nodded, struggling to keep her voice steady. Actually, I'm your mother, Liam. I've searched for Andre for a long time and now I've finally found you. Natalie's words seemed to echo in the room, and Liam stood still for a moment, trying to process the magnitude of the revelation. You're my mother, he repeated slowly, as if trying to internalize the new reality. And I never knew. Natalie approached Liam, her eyes filled with deep love and sadness for lost time. She reached out and gently touched Liam's arm, breaking a little with emotion. I never stopped looking for you. One day, your father simply ran away with you as a newborn, when we hadn't even decided on your name. My first impulse was to look for your grandmother, but when I got there, I was told that the family had moved. I called the police, but I couldn't find you. I'm sorry for all the time lost, but I'm here now. Liam felt a mixture of joy and shock. Natalie's words brought a new perspective on her life and past. He looked at the woman before him, and at that moment, the atmosphere in the room was filled with intense emotions. Nora watched with a look of worry and relief, knowing that her mission in life was almost complete. Liam approached Natalie, his eyes shining with tears. The idea of having a mother, the person he had always looked for, was beginning to come to fruition before him. I don't know what to say, he murmured, his voice breaking. I never imagined I would find you like this. There's no need for words now, Natalie replied softly. We're here, and that's what matters. Let's start building a new life together. With the truth finally revealed, a new era has begun for Liam, Natalie and Nora. The revelation brought a wave of change and new hope. Natalie, with her experience and financial resources, took charge of the situation with determination. Nora's surgery was quickly scheduled, and all necessary preparations were made to ensure she received the best treatment possible. Now, with the certainty of his family connection, Liam continued to perform at the restaurant. But his attitude was different, his heart felt lighter, and the pain he had felt for so long seemed to have eased. The public noticed the difference in his performance. There was a new depth and emotion in their songs that only someone who had found inner peace could express. Every note he sang carried the weight of new hope and renewed happiness. James and Aurora were deeply moved by the family reunion. They have followed Liam's journey from the beginning and feel like they are an integral part of this story. James, always Liam's mentor and guardian, was overjoyed to see the young man's happiness and the peace that Natalie and Nora brought. Aurora, who had helped Liam leave the orphanage for his performances, felt immense pride when she saw the accomplishment on his face. His support and care had been instrumental, and now she felt blessed to have witnessed Liam's transformation. Despite past difficulties, Liam, Natalie and Nora have formed an unexpected and strong alliance. Both were committed to ensuring Liam had the support and stability he needed to move forward. The future looked promising, and Liam, with his talent and determination, was prepared to make the most of every moment. The road ahead still had its ups and downs, but with the support of family and friends who had always been by his side, Liam was finally ready to embrace life with a hopeful heart and a peaceful mind. So, with the truth revealed and the family reunited, Liam, Natalie and Nora began to write a new chapter in their lives. Every step they took was filled with new energy and renewed love. Everyone was ready to face the future with courage and determination, knowing that together they could overcome any challenge that came their way. I hope you enjoyed this story full of twists and emotions. If you liked it and want more exciting narratives like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Each story is a new adventure, and we are always ready to surprise you. Also leave your comment about what you thought of the story and suggestions for future narratives. Until next time.